to Kenan. Your stories just blew me away. The work that you're doing blows me away, and it makes me miss the classroom a lot. So that's the first alert. I am no longer a teacher. I'm working as a coach these days, and my work as a coach is really driven by a lot of the things that Cicely and Kenan named, which is this desire to take this extraordinary work that teachers embark upon every day, try to spread that out. Cicely, you also am I saying your name correctly? Cicely.
Yes.
Thank you. Cicely also really just made me miss Kenan, you really made me miss New York City. I just moved to Oakland about 3 months ago, and already living with a boyfriend, hey! But yeah, so thank you so much for calling up the town that birthed me as a teacher, now that I've moved back to the state that birthed me as a person. So back to California for me. I'm going to be a little bit short here because I do feel so humbled by the stories that were shared in this room. But when I was thinking about the notion of creativity, I was brought back to my first year of being a teacher in a 4th, 5th grade split classroom in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, a special education class of 8 students. Of course, that year my face exploded into pimples because it's hard work. I was that 23-year-old person that came through the New York City Teaching Fellows, and I was meeting young people that I had never met the likes of before. We had Destiny, who, she just had an attitude problem, and we know what happens to Black children with attitude problems. They're put into special education. There was Rakeem, who just always wore this hood on his head. Ironically, one day Destiny picked him up by that hood and threw him into a wall. And then later that day, her stepfather bought her ice cream because I will never hear the end of it, what he told me. I thought, okay, at the end of this, next year when I go and teach 5th grade with Miss Sylvester in an integrated classroom, things are going to get a lot better because I'll be with a co-teacher who's been teaching for 20 years. Unfortunately, Miss Sylvester was not a good teacher. We were reading the book Esperanza Rising with our students, extraordinary book, and unfortunately she kept referring to it as Elza Riza. I don't know what that is, but it's not the name of the book, that's for sure. She was consistently doing work on the board wrong, and so now I had to figure out, how am I going to undermine this teacher without obviously undermining this teacher that had so much more power in me in this space because she's been in the school for about 20 years. So I thought, okay, next year, 4th grade, I'm going to teach with Miss Matthew. She's dope. And guess what? Our class was dope. We were talking about critical consciousness. We were taking our class on all sorts of field trips. We had stations. By 5th grade, when we moved up with our students, we had a system created where kids would be like, okay, switch, and the kids would walk up to the smart board, move the centers around where they needed to be. We were just literally sitting in the back like, you do you. And so we did that for 2 years, and it was extraordinary. And then I went down to 2nd grade. And I had been teaching 4th and 5th grade for these last 4 years of my teaching while integrating Common Core. We got a Common Core program that was from Kentucky to teach a bunch of Black kids in Brooklyn. And I thought, way to know your students, administration. And so there I was trying to adapt a program for little white kids in Kentucky to little Black kids in Brooklyn. I said, my kids are going to read Langston Hughes, thank you very much. So now I'm in 2nd grade. I have no idea. Kids are like, I don't know how to tie my shoes. And I'm like, I guess this is a good day for you to learn because I don't know what I'm doing here. This is insanity. And then we moved up to 3rd grade together. And by the end of that, we were just this extraordinary cohort of young people making brochures about why you should visit Nigeria. And then I said, you know what, New York City Public Schools, it's been great, but I can't work with this principal anymore. And so I gave charter schools a shot, and I went over to a charter school, taught 7th grade special education, and I mean, for those of you who teach middle school, you know that was a pretty extraordinary experience. It was my happy place, because in my heart of hearts, I'm also a middle schooler, a little bit awkward, a little bit goofy. All I want to know is like, do you really love me? And I hope that the answer is yes. And then I decided to go to grad school, which is where I met Alicia. The point of all of these stories really is just to say that throughout all of these experiences, one thing rang true. Well, 2 things rang true. Patience which is what everyone would always say when they would say, well, you taught 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th grade special education in Brooklyn. You must be really patient. And I would say, I think that's a very patronizing thing to say, but it's also very true. I was very, very patient, and it's something that I cultivated over time, so I am very proud of it. But more than patient, I was creative. When you're working in a class of students, of human beings, all of which have all of these different needs, all of these different interests. Often you're working with a curriculum that wasn't built for them, in a system that wasn't built for them, and you're trying to figure out how are we going to dismantle these systems of oppression with a bunch of little people. You have to be extraordinarily creative. And so when I think about creativity in the classroom, obviously often I think of art, I think of dance, I think of music, but those are all the things that are just funneled out of the inherent nature of the work of being an educator, which is to be creative, because without being creative, there's no way we can do our jobs. And so I just want to lift a hat to all the people who are still in the classroom, and I want to just thank Alicia for letting me come up here and talk for a few minutes, and I want to just say that I'm excited to be here. Thanks.